What up, what up, what up? Well, I'll tell you, if it's not one thing, it's a mother effing other. Having some technical difficulties, but once this internet is squared away, it's going to be over, right? We'll have an amazing experience. So I appreciate your patience and going on with the journey with me. My camera randomly just stopped working as well, but that's neither here nor there. You don't care about that. You're trying to get this good game. First and foremost, let me know where you're checking in from. Uh, Let me know where you guys are checking in from. And let me know how your Monday is. Give me one word to start your Monday, or for how your Monday started. And then we're going to go ahead and get started. This just gives everybody a chance to get in so that we can have this conversation. Indianapolis, I see some folks joining. Where you guys joining from? Let me know in the chat. Let me know in the chat where you are tapping in from. If you're watching the replay, let me know where you're tapping in from. So today we are going to have a dope conversation, a conversation that a lot of guys don't think about when it comes to personal style. Um, and I got a question for you, as I often do. What do you want? What do you want? What do you want out of life? What do you want out of this month? What do you want out of this year? And do you really want it, or do you crave it, or do you have a desire for it? And so we're going to have a conversation about the differences between these understandings, because one of the things that I've come to recognize and realize is a lot of us, myself included, will say we want something, but then we don't really put the necessary components into practice in order to get this. Even when it comes to personal style, I can't tell you how many dudes I've sat and talked to, and they're like, you know, now I see the value of my own personal style. I see the value of me dressing well and dressing better. And yet they don't want to make the necessary moves in order to do that. And I realize that they don't really want it. They just say that they want it. And this doesn't manifest itself like they just don't buy any clothes. This manifests itself in the space that they are going to buy just random stuff. Or they're going to get the latest quote unquote drip, even though if you've been rocking me for a little while, you know when you got drip on, you leaking. That means that you got a leak, right? That means the stuff isn't tight together and put together like it needs to be. So there's always this drop off of lack of understanding when it really comes to it. And so I wanted to have this conversation because when we start talking about our wants, right? I love this as I've developed in business, as I have developed in sales, all these different types of things, right? We hear people all the time that say, I want to lose weight, or I want to stop smoking, or I want to dress better, right? And those wants never really come to fruition. And the crazy thing is most of the time with our wants, we know what we want, and we even know how to get it in some spaces, but we're never going to do what's necessary just because it's just a want. It's just a want, right? You can want to date a higher quality woman, a better quality woman, and continue to self sabotage over the course of interacting with qualitative women, because either you don't feel like you're deserving, you don't feel like it's going to be a uh, interesting or worthwhile relationship. You may feel like a good woman is going to be boring, right? Or you may even feel like that's cool, but I may be missing something, over here. The grass is green on the other side type of philosophy. So a lot of people claim to know what they want. We hear this with women all the time, right? That they claim that they know what they want. Or when it comes to your personal style, that I know what I want. I want to dress well, right? But that want is such a broad, overarching conversation. So it's not immediate, it's not necessary in the grand scheme of things, and there's no urgency behind it. And so I had a guy, we were having a conversation. He was like, there were actually three guys within about 6 months who came in who wanted to dress better. And each one of these guys said that they wanted to, but I noticed that one craved it and the other one had a strong desire to dress better, to present himself in a better way. And there were three reasons why each one of these guys wanted to dress better, craved dressing better, and then also the guy who desired to dress better. And so we're going to have a conversation around all of these different types of elements and how that actually affects or infects, for some guys, your image. So the first part of this is want, right? So to want something is just that desire, is just the interest, right? It is the old concept of the chicken being interested, right? There's another aspect of that which we'll talk about. um and so the interest is as intense as it is cool, right? So for a lot of guys, they'll say, man, yeah, I want to dress better. And this guy came in and he was like, you know what? I think it would be cool to dress better. I want to dress better. And I said, why do you want to dress better? And they were like, I'm just I'm just tired of wearing whatever I'm wearing, and I just think it would be cool to start dressing more cool, right? For it to work with my wardrobe, or my wardrobe just needs an overhaul. That was essentially what he was saying. And I remember saying, okay, we went through several different books and we started to talk about how we could customize the style and really create a capsule collection for them. And if you've been rocking with me for a little while, then you know that I believe when you're starting with your foundation, a capsule collection is great because you could have at max 20 items that can get you 360 different types of pieces that you could put together. And so we started going through the process of developing those things. And probably about 30 to 45 minutes in, he stopped me and was like, hey, bro, this is cool and all, but I really just wanted some new clothes, if I'm being honest. I didn't really want to do all of this, right? That's exactly what he was like, all of this, right? He was like, I feel overwhelmed. This is not going to really benefit me at all. I just wanted some pieces. And so he walked out. I saw him a short time later, probably about 2 or 3 weeks later, because we worked in this big complex. So I happened to see him again, and he had on some new clothes. They were designer clothes, and they were cool, and people were giving him compliments, and he thought he was doing it. But I realized he didn't really want to dress better. He just had an interest in looking better. And there's nothing wrong with these aspects. There's a lot of guys who just want the look. They just want the attention that can come with some cool clothes. And these cool clothes are usually going to have insignias on them. They're usually going to be the aspects that are going to draw attention instead of command attention, right? Because they're just interested in what the clothing can do for them, right? So, in philosophical terms, a want can be seen as just very surface level. It's just an interest. It's like, oh, it's cool, whatever, right? And it's always frequently connected to something external. There is nothing that is going to speak to who you are or what you're about. So, I let that guy go. I saw him again a few other times, and he was this fashionable guy. It was cool, and he got what he wanted. A short time after that, another guy came in, kind of frantic. He was anxious, nervous, and he was like, "Hey, man, like I need a suit. Like I need a suit, and I need a shirt, I need a tie, and I need to put some stuff together like really quick, like ASAP." And I was like, all right, bro, like, relax. I didn't say that to him as a customer, but I was like, okay, no problem. We'll get you squared away. So at the time, we didn't have any pieces that fit him off the rack. So I was like, and this was very early on in my career, so I didn't think to ask certain qualifying questions. I was like, well, unfortunately, we don't have your size in any of our ready to wear options. well, we can make something for you. Takes about 6 to 8 weeks. We can go through all the fabrics. I was getting excited. We go through the fabrics and we can put these different types of things together. I can get you like 5 shirts. We can do a great package for you and get all these things together. And he looked at me and was like, man, I don't got time to do none of that. I got to go to a wedding in another state this weekend and I need some clothes. Like, that's not going to help me get these clothes, get this look together. Man, I need it now. And I remember we couldn't do anything for him, but I luckily had some friends in some different stores. And so I gave a call to a few friends. They happened to have his size. And he ran over to the other spot. He got, uh, I think, 5 shirts. He got or he got a suit and a jacket, a pair of jeans, and a pair of shoes, right? And I remember being so upset, like, man, that was a big sale. Like, that was something like I think $4,000 or $5,000. It may have been more than that. And man, I'm not gonna get this sale. And I talked to the guy sometime later, like maybe 2 or 3 weeks later, and I asked him about him just after we were talking. He was like, "Yeah, man, he was cool, but like honestly, that little quick 5,000 that we made off of the sale wasn't worth it because he was a headache. Like the whole time he was worrying us, over the next 3 or 4 days on what was going on with his pieces and were they going to be tailored in time and all these other different types of things. And then when he put it on, it looked good, but it didn't look good. And I was like, what does that mean? He was like, yo, he looked good, but like he looked mad uncomfortable. And it was almost as if he had never really thrown on a suit before, or at the very least, like a nice fitting suit, because he didn't really know how to move. And so I didn't ever see this guy again, neither did the other guy. And I realized that was because a craving is usually something that's going to be visceral, right? So have you ever craved a food? Maybe you have a favorite dessert or you have a favorite meal. And you be thinking about 2, 20, 30, 40 other things, right? And all of a sudden you be like, man, I'm in the mood for? I'm in the mood for a burger. Or I'm in the mood for a donut. Or I'm in the mood for just a great glass of beer, right? Like all of those things are not really going to be of benefit to you. And I learned over time from Surviving Vegan. There's a great young lady who had this company called Surviving Vegan that's usually associated with a stressor. So when you crave something, there's usually some level of imbalance or a stressor or a trigger that is creating that visceral need for you to fulfill said thing, right? This is why you'll hear even guys talk about retail therapy. Man, it's been a hard day, man. I need some retail therapy. I'm gonna go grab me some pieces. And the interesting thing that will happen with a craving for some style or a response, much like my man, to the need for what he was going to start utilizing for the upcoming weekend, is that you're always reactionary, right? So when you think about a craving, you are reactionary, which means you're probably not going to make the best decision for you, which means you're probably not going to feel the most confident or the most engaging when you put that on. And even from a philosophical uh, standpoint, it comes down to a loss of control, no longer being able to be disciplined in what it is that you are craving and you're wanting to get to. And my apologies for looking over here. My camera is down and I'm supposed to be looking right here. And that's why you've been seeing me do this, because normally I would be talking to you right here. So when you crave something, it's not going to be thoughtful. It's not going to be rational when you are putting those things together. And you'll see this with dudes sometimes, even from the opposite sex and dealing with the opposite sex. When I was young, I can tell you how many times like a dude would be like, "Yeah, man, you know, Shorty ain't got no pretty face. She's a butterface, but you know what I'm saying." So I'm gonna mess with her. And there was like one or two times where a homie did that and ended up getting a young lady pregnant. And I'm like, yo, like you allowed your cravings to put you in a position that are going to affect you for the rest of your life, right? You had a beautiful child. This is not the child's fault. There's nothing to talk about the child there, but that's not the best or the truest representation that you wanted to have when it comes to the type of woman that you want. But you were willing to sacrifice that to fulfill an urge that you didn't really need to fulfill had you just had a little bit of discipline, right? So it is the loss of your disciplines that cost you those elements. And so I can only imagine that the guy who had the craving satisfied the urge to have a look together, and this was going to a wedding, so superficial suffering, as I like to say. But I can only imagine that he was uncomfortable. He was probably insecure when he was moving about, and nobody was really interacting with him on a deeper level because he was very reactionary. And if he was reactionary in that state, that energy was then comprised and composed in those clothes, right? So even when you are craving something, a lot of guys may think that, oh, this craving is good. It is the draw out, but in truth, it may just be a loss of your control of self, which is going to then become chaos for your closet and chaos for your character and how you're showing up. So the last guy, he walks into the shop. He had been into the shop, I want to say like three times. And every time he came in, he would just look. He may ask one or two questions about what our offerings were. The second time he asked like how long the process took and what it was all comprised of. And I remember after the second time, I'm not gonna even hold you. I was like, dude, like if you ain't buying something, like move on. Like, my God, like he's just asking questions just to be asking questions. Like he's just passing time. But he would always go through, look at fabrics, ask different questions like, how would you put this together? Would this look good on me? What does this compose itself of, like with fabrics, and how could I wear this? Where could I wear this to? And I remember like, man, this dude is just talking. He's a talker. He's a looker. And if you've ever worked in retail, there will be certain people who will talk about like just the looky loos. People who are there not necessarily to waste your time, but they're not really trying to do anything. And so I thought this guy was a looky loo. So the let's say 6 or 7 months later, he came in. He was talking to me about some different items. I showed him a few fabrics, and he was "What, what would you do for these if I wanted pants? Like, how would you put these together?" And so in my mind, I'm rolling my eyes, like, "Here we go, right?" And so I started talking to him. I was like, "Yeah, this pant would be great." I don't again show him that, but I say, "This is what we could put together. This would be great. I think if we put this together, this could be great. Here's the types of shirts that you could wear with it, and how you could put this together over here." And then from there, we could really start building on more of your look. Now, I'm expecting him to do the same thing that he does any other time and say, "Oh man, thanks a lot, man. Yeah, I'm gonna think about it." And he was like, "All right, so how much would all of this run me?" I'm like, "You never asked that question before." So I was like, "Oh, it'd probably be about 6,000, give or take." And he was like, "Okay, like let's go ahead and process that." And I was like, "What?" He was like, "Yeah, let's go ahead and run that through. And how long it's gonna take again?" Told him how long it was gonna take. And then from there, he would come in roughly about every 3 to 6 months, and he would purchase some of the items that we had talked about over the course of that 6 months. And I realized that this was because he really had a desire to cultivate a style and to elevate his personal brand and his personal expression. And so a desire is often deeper, it is internal, and it is a yearning, it's a fire, a passion that is going to manifest itself externally as well as internally. And it usually starts internally first, right? And so if you think about athlete, whether it is Derrick Rose, who recently retired, or Kobe Bryant, who I wasn't a fan of actually until he retired, of the man, of the obsession that this guy had. Michael Jordan, again, not a Michael Jordan fan. Blasphemy for some of you guys, but I'm a Knick fan through and through. So that is why can never root for Michael Jordan, right? But or LeBron James or Steph Curry, any one of these guys that we deem as great, as successful, or a business person like Steve Jobs or Bill Gates, right? All of these guys have a deep yearning, they have a desire, almost an obsession to go for something grand, to go for something bigger, to have true understanding and understanding of what it is that they are doing, right? So there's internal need first to have the understanding, and then there is a different aspect that starts to manifest itself when you see them put those things together. So if we think about the desire for a woman, there is a difference. And if you've ever read The Art of Seduction, then you have the understanding that seduction takes time. It takes observation, it takes intention, it takes awareness, it takes the ability to make a dance out of the exchange, and understand with the understanding that just because she's giving you pushback doesn't mean that she's writing you off, right? It may be the opportunity to see how intelligent, witty, or charming you have the ability to be, right? And the desire for that interaction usually is far beyond sexual, it's far beyond physical. Most guys don't just want the physical interaction. When I was young, I had the concept of understanding that once I have your mind, I can have your body whenever I want it. And so when I was 19, 20, I was very intentional about understanding the mind, or the perspective, or at least attempting to understand the perspective of the woman that I was dealing with. And that also manifested itself in how I started to dress. And as I got older, I had an understanding that how I dressed was going to attract a certain type of woman and repel a different type of woman. And so before, when I met my wife, actually, the type of woman that I wanted to attract was attracted to that, right? So when we start thinking about the desires are things that are going to be internal and then will then project themselves through our presentation. This is why the good book, if you're religious, it says that if you seek ye first the kingdom of God, right? I'm not telling you to be religious, but if you seek ye first this higher power, this altruistic perspective, this bigger, grander thing than yourself, then you'll receive all of the desires of your heart. Well, why do you have to desire those things with your heart? Because they have to be internal. You have to be thoughtful. You have to be intentional about what it is that you're using. The same thing is true with your image. So the guy who stepped out and said, I'm going to take time to one, see if this is the company, the brand, the haberdashery that I want to work with on is good, right? I'm just trying to check and make sure that they have the proficiency, the knowledge, the expertise, the mastery to work with me. Then I want to make sure that I have the understanding of what is going to work best for me, because I could have written him off. I could have given him unsound advice and bad advice, and he probably would have talked to somebody else once he realized this is the store that I want to be at, right? And then the last aspect was, how am I going to put these things together? So the third time I think he came in, I asked him, I was like, what prompted you to like work with me, one, but also to get those things together? And he was like, I really felt like it was time. I felt confident in what I was going to get with you, and that if there was anything else that I needed to build on or fix, that you would be able to guide me in the right direction, which was um, a humbling explanation, Because again, in my mind, I'm saying this dude is just looking loo, man, he's wasting my time. He's not all these other different types of things. And so I realized that I just wanted to make a sale, but he was actually one of the catalysts that helped pivot my perspective into really having a desire to help men show up as the best version of themselves, right? And this is why I talk about guys having an understanding of themselves, then really thinking about what they're going to curate around their closet so that they can have a continuous and focalized rotation, whether it's retail or it's just something that is going to reflect who they are for the image and the industry that they find themselves in, so that they have a powerful presentation that has a theme. All of those things require thought and a desire to be more, to do more, to see more, so that you can see yourself ultimately as yourself and allow other people to do that for you, to do that with you, I should say. And so I want you to really think about whether or not you really want to show up as the best version of yourself, or you just have a craving to do it, that visceral response, or if this is truly a desire. And here are three things that will tell you if you really do have a desire to dress well, or if you just want to be fashionable, or you're just trying to respond to something because you're in a pinch. If you can take time in the morning to actually get ready, to not only get ready while putting your clothes on, but to get ready for the day, to get ready for the type of day that you want to have, then you are desiring to have a great day. That's your desire. If you take time to get into your routine, to meditate, to iron your clothes, to, if meditation is your thing, by the way, or to work out, or to do any of these things that are going to reflect authentically with who you are, then you have a desire for how you're showing up. But if you're waking up last minute, 5 minutes, because you hit the snooze button 10 times, and you're throwing on some clothes that may be wrinkled, may not even be clean, right? And you are just stepping out, then you're just trying to get through the day. So it's a visceral reaction to life, right? Or if you are throwing on something hoping that it's going to impress people that you don't really know and that really don't know you. I see a lot of that in Atlanta, right? By throwing on the designer label that means absolutely nothing to the people that you truly want to connect with, or that may mean something to the people that you truly want to connect with, only because you don't know yet that they are all surface level and superficial. So all those points and places that you thought you wanted access to is not until you get into those spaces that you realize it's all BS. There's plenty of people who wanted to get into the Diddy party. I was one of them. I'm not gonna lie, right? I was like, man, Diddy White party back in the early 2000s for the 99 in the 2000s. I was trying to be at a Diddy party, most definitely, right? But it wasn't until I started meeting some celebrities and I realized how a lot of them, not all, but a lot of them could be like really, really rude, condescending, mean spirited, usury. Like they were not necessarily good people. And this is not a fault of the celebrity, because what I had to have some compassion for is the understanding that they are in a universe that is all about them and that does not allow them to say no. They don't get any no men. They only have yes men, right? And yes women. And so this allows people to have a distorted view of reality. And so while I thought I wanted to be in those spaces. When I got into a few of those spaces early on when I lived in New York, I got into the cool parties. I got into, the young, hip, up and coming actors, actresses, the D or C or B list celebrities that hadn't quite made that transition. I started realizing that's not the type of space that I want to be. Because the first thing that they were looking at me for was, who are you? Are you somebody that I can use, or somebody that I can step on in order to get to the next level? Um, and the people that I really enjoyed being around were on their way up. They were on their ascensions, but they had a passion, they had a desire for their purpose and how they wanted to show up and how they wanted to present themselves. Cats like my homeboys with street etiquette, right? and Joshua Kissy, who's doing amazing work now in the film industry, and Travis Gomes, who's still doing some amazing things in fashion and style, or Carl Edwin Gear, who now owns an um, amazing magazine publication called No Chaser, right? I came into contact with a young man named Chris Classic who has My Savoir Faire. All these guys had desires to be something bigger than themselves, to pursue something that was more than the superficial, right? And they were perfectly fine with it taking the necessary time to develop and to cultivate something that was going to be memorable. And I remember thinking about how much I just admired that and how much it inspired me. It was part of the inception of Style Architects about helping men make a statement so that they could ultimately create their own narrative to tell their story in style. And if you've been rocking with me for a little while, then you know every man should be a king, warrior, magician, and lover. And that's what this was all about. And so when I started to have that revelation, that realization, it changed what my desires were. And it also changed how I showed up in these given situations. That's the same thing that I want for you, is for you to understand that your personal presentation is truly a reflection of your mind. That's why you've heard me say that dress is the outward expression of a man's state of mind, right? Because his attire will tell the world what he desires. It will truly project how he's going to move to get there. And for the guys who continuously come in to have these deeper conversations around style, I know that you desire to truly have that understanding of self so that other people and the right people can connect with you. And that's the most amazing experience that you can have, because those understandings, that desire is what's going to resonate with people. It's going to be that statement from Maya Angelou that says, people may not remember what they said, but they will remember how you made them feel. Because authenticity always resonates and leaves the resonance behind. So I want you to try this on, see how it fits you. And listen, if you are just craving or desiring clothing for the want for some other people to be impressed by you, think about leaving a impression, the imprint, and then find out how impressive, and then you'll experience actually how impressive that actually is. And if you find yourself in a reactionary state more often than not, then that usually means that you just don't have the necessary components to really curate the ability to shop your own closet, or you aren't taking the necessary time and thought to plan your wardrobe for what your needs are. And if you have any type of issues with either one of those, then send me a DM and we can build together and we can talk about really how to cultivate that so that you can really find the desires of your mind and your style. All right, I want you to try this on, see how it fits you. Does anybody got any questions? If not, then I'll go ahead and leave it to the start of your week to be great. But then again, you already know that you are, and I'm trying to be great. Next week, next week, mark my words. I'll be looking here. Oh, see, that's how serious I am. That's how serious I am. I'll be looking here instead of here because my camera will be fixed, and we're gonna make that happen. Um, Zeb, appreciate it. It's the same background, but different setup now. So I appreciate that. Um, yeah, does anybody else have any questions or perspectives? If not, we'll go ahead and leave you to it, and I will see you guys next week. I know this is a little bit shorter than our normal conversations, but it was still a necessary one because I want guys to really have that understanding, overstanding, understanding of how what we desire will manifest itself in more ways than not. More ways than not. I'm sorry. So, all right, I'll consider that Zeb. This I've been told that this is a better angle, So if we can figure that out, we'll continue to work on that. Outside of that, be great today. Then again, you already are. You knew that. So now all you have to do is show up and show out in style, remembering that dress is nothing more than the expression of a man's state of mind. So you, yes, you should always dress to address your life and your style so that you can attire what you desire. We'll see you next week. Peace.